Hey everyone. Yeah, so you're probably wondering, wait, what kind of video is this? Well, people have been kind of wondering like, "Oh, where have you been? Where have you been a long time?" Life. That's basically it. There's nothing more simpler than that. It's just life. Life, I've been dealing with some stuff, some personal stuff, dealing with some family matters and stuff. But yeah, without getting into too much details, yeah, I haven't been making a lot of videos recently, and I think a lot of people have noticed that. I have made at least a lot of letterbox reviews, so if you want to check those out, it's a link description. You can check out what I've been watching. I have been watching a lot of movies, and I will get to, for example, I will get to making my top 10 films of 2023, which, yeah, the year's almost kind of over at this point. Yeah, it's like we're now kind of in the holiday season. But yeah, so just to explain, this is something that I think that happened last year that I tried to fix this year, but the problem is that I just couldn't get around to it. I tried to get around to it. I tried to get around to things, but at the same time, I've been trying to find, like I said, the identity of, my YouTube channels now that I've kind of separated them into categories. And I even stopped doing streams. For the reason I did that was because of the factor that I kind of need something for the streams that a lot of people have been using right now, so I'm going to be doing that for current streams. That's just another thing to put out. But yeah, so the reason why I want to make this is that I just want to. I feel like this is going to take too much time. If I keep going back to this, it's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of time, just trying to get back to this, and I really don't want to half-ass it. I kind of want to get to currently where I am, like right now I'm working on a few things and I want to focus on that, but the problem is there's this other thing which right now I'm going to be doing that kind of is sticking like right now to the point that like, oh, I kind of need to go back to this and stuff. And you know what, I want to talk about new stuff. I want to talk about these new stuff, but you know what, let's just get to the point. Okay, so remember AniMay? Yeah, AniMay that, I've been trying to do every year and stuff. And like I said, I already explained, it's been kind of a problem lately. And I'm not sure if I can do the whole thing with my, like I said, basically what I tried to do was like I tried to be like doing the thing that James Rolfe did for Monster Madness, or Doug Walker from Disney-cember. He does Disney-cember every year. But the thing is that I somehow managed to never get it on time. I could never manage to get these videos on time because of I don't want to half-ass those videos, but at the same time I feel like it's going to take a while. It's going to take forever just to finally get to them. So I'm going to do my best right now, which I'm going to do with basically, these aren't technically reviews, but these are my general thoughts on these anime, like the stuff that I was going to review for anime that have you seen on the previews. This is basically a kind of quick rundown, basically almost kind of quick reviews. And like I said, I'm going to do my very best not to half-ass anything. I'm going to give my at least general thoughts of what I thought about these anime and give as much detail as possible, but at the same time give at least my good thoughts that I would have given to the other videos. And actually what's kind of funny about it is that I technically completed most of these scripts for these videos, so that's a thing to say. So I particularly am baffled of the factor that I'm not going to be able to do like full-on separate video reviews for these because of the other stuff that's happening, and I don't want to just keep you all waiting because it's already I already have a lot of stuff packed. I just want to focus on the stuff that's like what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to change my channel to something else, and then possibly for anime in 2000, I know that there technically wasn't a 2023 anime, but you know, I guess this can technically count as I'm doing some reviews for anime. But like I said, want to get. I think I want to get my priority straight of what I want to do for those reviews. I think it's more that I think it's better that if I do more of a marathon of those animes rather than doing, you know, an entire month of it, because with a marathon you can just keep going as much as you want for at least, if you know, I want to keep, you know, making these videos, you know, the best as possible without trying to like, so yeah, instead of anime, which is kind of sad, it'll be mostly an anime-a-thon, anime-a-thon or something like that. It'll be more like it's going to be that's basically what my plan is. It's going to be more that I'm going to be reviewing these anime shows that I like, but it's going to basically be more of months going by instead of having an entire month for it, because that's just restraining the time, and I really want to put effort into these videos. But I also kind of don't want to keep you hanging on like a lot of these shows that I haven't even talked about yet. So yeah, I'm gonna basically run down both basically the anime that I was going to show. So yeah, let's just start with the first one. This is one of the first few animes that I did technically watch on Crunchyroll. This is when, you know, like I said, I was scrolling through Netflix and kind of, you know, just trying to search for stuff that I've never really watched before, things that kind of interest me, because I want to get back. When I wanted to get back into anime, I wanted to do different genres, but not only different genres, I really wanted to do, you know, see some anime that, you know, that kind of basically, you know, interest me, you know, stuff that interests me. And, you know, I love video games, so I'm just like, okay, I'm going to watch this anime that basically has something to do with video games. What I was surprised about was that it was basically one of those animes that is what most people call nowadays cute girls doing cute things. Basically, it's a bunch of young adults. I'm going to say young adults because they kind of don't look like young adults in this anime. A bunch of young adults. So the basic plot of the series is about basically our main character graduating from college and now has a degree in video game developing, and now is basically taking a job into a company of one of her favorite companies of all time that has made one of her favorite video games of all time, and she basically is going to make the sequel to one of her favorite franchises, you know. Make a sequel to one of her favorite franchises. She meets this manager who's completely as eccentric can be. Like, she's very out there when it comes to her personality. Who she also happened to have a friend who possibly has a very close relationship to, but then she meets these other characters, these very fun, colorful characters, and what they basically do is that they go around and have kind of a little slice of life adventures and kind of talk and help each other on trying to not only learn how to communicate with each other, but also try to make the game. And then I think one of my favorite characters in the show is a character named Nini. She happens to be the best friend of the main character, and at first, in the first season, she's just kind of basically a kind of side character that the main character talks to a bunch of the time, you know, the best friend. But then, of course, in the second season, she gets more of like a very better role. But yeah, most of season one is just basically these characters trying to communicate with each other, trying to make this new video game, and of course the main character is having a difficult time trying to make video games, because video games themselves, I mean, when you love video games so much, but then like you start to realize, like, you know, how do developers make video games? Well, let me tell you, they put a lot of effort into making video games. They put a huge amount of effort into it. You know, I think a lot of people, when they look at video games, they kind of take it for granted. Like, yeah, I mean, it's just a bunch of pixels. You know, yeah, make them walk around, do attacks and stuff, and like I can see a whole bunch of people kind of like saying like, oh yeah, it's probably the most basic job in the world. I mean, how hard it is to like make a video. It is hard, okay? I have taken a practice class in high school once that, you know, had to involve video game development, and I even tried to go in a career of trying to make video games, but it kind of never turned out well, that I kind of had to quit at some point. But I don't know, maybe I've been kind of interested in trying to go back to it. There's kind of like this big interest in going back to it, but I'm kind of like stuck right now. I'm kind of stuck in trying to see if I should. You know, sometimes I say yes, sometimes I say no. I have ideas, for example, but yeah, just getting back to this, like, make a video game development takes time and effort. It's just like making art. It's kind of like with movies, you have actors, you have, you know, the crew, you have, you know, the director, you have the finance from studios and stuff. And as long as you have professionals working, you clearly are making what you are making. You have a professional editor, you know, that kind of stuff. There's just some kind of, you know, big, like very small, but also kind of big team of people making this. But then there's something called with video games, it's kind of a very similar thing. You have a director, you have a producer, you have a game designer, you have game testers, which I guess is kind of a cool job, but you also kind of need to do a lot with that job. You can't just lazy out about it. So that's just the thing about this, you know. I really do love the factor that this anime really talks about the detail of how to make a video game, and how coding is like, you know, it's very hard to get through. You have to study that shit like crazy. If you're really good at math, you're possibly going to be very good at coding. But at the same time, when you're coding for a video game, it's not just a bunch of like, oh, you know, drag this here or drag this there. No, you have to like code that shit just to make it work and stuff. And it can take time and effort to do it. It takes a lot of time and effort. Nowadays, we've kind of made it a little bit easier. Even now, people online can practice themselves into making video games. Like, you know, there's RPG Maker, there's Super Mario Maker, there's even an NES Maker, which is really cool. It's like you can buy this kind of like software where you can actually make your own NES game and maybe put your ROM online, or you can even put it on, you know, an actual cartridge and stuff, which is really cool. But like, you really need that practice. You need to practice at least years of experience, you know. Like I said, study that shit if you want to do it. And I really do feel like this anime, not only just involving cute girls doing cute things, I feel like this anime really represents the kind of difficulty it is to making a video game. But there's also another anime that kind of does the same thing. Actually, it's very similar, except this one involves girls in high school, and I actually have a Blu-ray of it right here. It's called Magic of Stella. This is actually a really good one too. It's a very good, it's a very nice anime, but it's a very similar idea. However, I feel like New Game does a much better, you know, idea than this. But you know what, this is a really good one too. That's kind of the reason I have the Blu-ray of that. But yeah, New Game, yeah, is pretty good. I think it's if you want to see just a bunch of cute girls doing, like I said, cute girls doing things, this gives you what you wanted. But if you also want to see how the progress of game development, making friends, and, you know, just showing you how it works and how people have to deal with time crunches and stuff, yeah, just watch this. This is pretty good. Pretty good. Kill la Kill. So this one is done by, I think this is the anime, I am very sure that this is the anime that basically brought the identity of Studio Trigger. This anime represents their art style, what you think of when you think of this studio, and let's just say a lot of other shows have tried to basically parody Studio Trigger, such as OKKO, and of course I think most people know Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles basically kind of takes inspiration from, that kind of the action art style, but also kind of flair of Studio Trigger. I haven't seen all of their anime. For example, Little Witch Academia, which I actually did a full video on, so you can check that out. There's also when battles become when supernatural battles become commonplace. That's another one from Studio Trigger, but that kind of is its own little thing because it doesn't have the art style of Studio Trigger. I think that anime came out, I think, before, or when they were trying to get their identity together. But Kill la Kill was basically the start of their identity. It's basically about a young teenager named Ryoko who basically wants to get revenge for the death of her father. And she basically has one of these powerful almighty sword scissors, one of the pieces of the sword scissors, and then she discovers that the leader of this kind of elite school basically happens to be her older sister, and basically it's a fight between siblings, but of course, before Ryoko has to go take her down, she has to take out a bunch of her friends before she can even reach her. And literally, Ryoko, as soon as she tries to fight them off, and she's a badass. For example, she is a major badass, but she gets her ass kicked literally the first time. And you know what? She kind of at first kind of gives up on it, but then of course she discovers in her father's laboratory that there's this kind of dress that talks, weirdly enough, that she basically has to put on in order to have this kind of magical girl battle suit, which basically makes her really powerful in order to take on these elite students, basically from high school. But then, of course, she makes friends with a very eccentric girl and her family, and she stays with them just so every time she goes to the school, she has to beat every single one of those elite members in order to get to her sister that she needs to beat in the finale in order to take revenge, to avenge her father. But then there's this kind of other plot that comes in to it. There's another plot that comes into it that that I don't want to reveal, but it's a very, very, very good one. It's a very good kind of twist on what's happening so far. A lot more things happen, but I don't want to reveal anything. I think the thing that I like about this show is definitely the action. The action in the series, it is insanely crazy. It is fast paced. It is fucking epic. The animation is just really, really good. And surprisingly, it's a gory series too. I mean, there is a lot of scenes where characters are either bleeding or literally even having decapitation almost too. But there is just a lot of crazy ass fight scenes and just a lot of very funny but also weird imagery. It's just basically a crazy ass series. I love Ryoko. She's a great character. I love her eccentric best friend. I just can't remember her name right now. I'm so sorry, but I really, really do like the world of this series. It's kind of it kind of shows the whole world between it just kind of I think it kind of takes inspiration from a lot of worlds evolving, where the rich and powerful. It kind of is almost a very relevant series, kind of like the Big O, where it shows how the rich and powerful has everything and basically the poor have nothing and live in this apocalyptic town. Well, not really apocalyptic, more like a rundown town and something like that. It's kind of a very series that's kind of very relevant. It's but I think what makes it work is its humor. Its humor is mixed in a bunch of dark humor, a lot of lighthearted humor, but the humor is very fast paced, but also kind of very strange and weird, just like I think most anime. But like I said, what I really like is that I like the relationship between Ryoko and a friend. I do like the adventures that she goes on just to try to figure out who the mastermind is, and like I said, I think her sister also plays a big part in this. You see a bunch of her making friends with all these other with the other elite, and you see their backstory. You see why they ended up recruiting with each other. And like I said, all the characters kind of have very funny but also very cool backstories. Like I said, I love the family. I think one of the very like funniest funny like moments in the series is definitely a lot of the kind of a lot of which has been turned into gifs, you know, where one of the characters gets cheese and then gets a cake thrown in her cake and pie thrown in her face and stuff. And then there's just like, I think people know kind of got spoiled, but I don't want to say what it is, but if you've seen those clips of basically let's just say the best friend saying something to the main character by the end of the story, and yeah, I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting that. It kind of felt like they were, you know, just family and family. Like, you know, I felt like there was like a family aspect to it, but I guess it just went a completely other direction. Don't want to reveal what it is, but it is kind of obvious what I'm saying. But honestly, it's still a really cool series. I think most people have seen it, but it is a pretty awesome anime from Studio Trigger, and I'm hoping they make more series like this, cause yeah, this one's a pretty good one. Kotoura-San. Okay, so this is also one of the few animes, the very first few animes besides Squid Girl, where I saw this on Crunchyroll. And Kotoura-San is possibly one of the most, how do I say, it goes from one genre to a completely different genre. It's almost kind of like a whiplash in a sense when it comes to like the very first episode. I don't know if like I don't know if people will be off with the tone or something like that, but I'll give you a brief understanding to it. You remember how like the beginning, you all have seen, if any of you seen Guardians of the Galaxy, you know how in the beginning of the movie it's like really depressing and really really sad, but then as soon as you see Star-Lord in like the opening credits of the movie, it's all of a sudden like really silly and just really off the wall, kind of funny. It's just jokey kind of comedy, but also still filled with, you know, action and heart and stuff like that. Kotoura-san basically has the same thing. So the story is about the character Kotoura-san, who starts out as a little girl in the series in the very first episode. But you see, she discovers from, you know, from seeing it in school that she has the ability to read people's minds, and her parents think of this as a gift. But then, of course, you know, instead of taking her to like a teacher or a mystical person, wizard thing to try to teach her how to control her mind reading powers, she, of course, they don't do that. And of course, this leads her to basically telling everyone in her school what they're thinking and stuff. And yeah, it gets really dark, because of the point, because I think anyone who's kind of had these cliche plots about reading people's minds and stuff and then telling them what they're thinking about, it kind of, you know, makes you into like this really terrible person, or you're not supposed to look at what people's minds. People can think of like either very bad things a lot of the time, sometimes good things, sometimes bad, but most of the time very bad or strange things, and or things that they don't want to tell anybody. That's just kind of a thing. So of course, Kotoura-san basically tells all, because she's a kid, it's understandable. She tells everyone in her school what they're thinking about, and of course, everyone gets so mad that they basically avoid her. She completely is avoided from everybody, including her friends in the school. It is so sad. And then eventually, to the point, she ends up reading her father's mind, to the point that her father ends up divorcing her mother's, and so her mother, thank gosh, tries to find help, but of course no one's been able to help her out, to the point, so of course her mother gets kind of emotionally traumatized, or kind of basically turns so shitty that she actually ends up abandoning her daughter and leaving her with her with her grandfather. And then of course the last words that she says, "I wish I'd never given birth to you," which is so traumatizing to a child. I mean, good gosh, is this starting out really depressing? And even to the point when Kotoura-San is finally finishing middle school and then she transfers into high school and stuff, and she tries to find some, some things to see if, like, if they, if her mind reading powers can be used for good, but of course she can't. And of course things just go bad for her to the point that even there's this one, but even before the whole the transition to a different genre happens, there's this one scene where Kotora takes care of a little kitty, a stray, a kitty that basically is in a box and stuff in the street, and like she's taking care of it, and she's possibly made a friend of her. But then an old lady just comes in and says, "I took the cat to the shelter. You don't need to take care of it anymore. Seriously, what were you thinking?" Like, basically kind of talking shit to her, and I'm just like, what the? This series is dark, man. It starts out really, really dark, and so of course she goes into this great depression, and she then obviously transfers to another high school, to stay away from the high school that she was once before. As of course she's obviously depressed, and she realizes that she should never use her powers again. But of course they happen automatically, so of course she's never going to even talk to anyone or even do anything. And then so she goes into the new high school, and that's where it all changes, because then she meets a young teenage boy who basically thinks of very weird things in his head. Like, he's thinking about weird kind of funny stick cactuses that are basically dancing and stuff like that, and it shocks her. And then all of a sudden the world just turns colorful the moment that happens, and then all of a sudden the series just turns into a comedy. I am not even joking you. The series went from a dark, depressing, kind of emotionally traumatizing to a straight up comedy. It just, in the very first episode, it just goes into a comedy. I'm just like, what? I'm just like, what? All of a sudden it's a comedy now. I'm just like, how did that? It's just basically very similar to Guardians of the Galaxy. It starts out really dark, only to get to be hilarious for some odd reason. It's just a whole whiplash of genres that happens. But basically, so at first, at first, of course, the boy is very interested in Kotoura-San, that because he eventually figures out that, she has mind reading powers. But of course, and of course eventually he starts having a crush on her, literally just by talking to her a little bit. And of course she kind of finds it a little irritating, to the point that he thinks of very perverted things about her, literally, because she's always reading her mind, and she tries to like take the gutter out of his head, like the gutter out of his because you literally see thought bubbles through his head, and like she's literally just trying to like throw them away and stuff like that. It is very funny. Eventually she meets some other characters, even meeting an occult club, basically talking about the mystical world, or like, spirits, or even mind reading. She meets these other characters. There's this other girl who happens to have a crush on the boy, on the main boy, and yeah, so it's just basically a slice of life series that is mostly a comedy, but it does kind of add a little bit more towards the end of the series. There is kind of a bit of a redemption that goes on later on, but I really don't want to spoil anything. In my honest opinion, if you want to see this anime, I say you do so. Do see this anime. It's on Crunchyroll, or, you want to watch it any way you want, but like, I really do recommend this anime. It is one of the hidden gems that I saw the first time I saw it. I was shocked to see like the direction it was going. And honestly, I really do like the characters. I like Kotoura-San, that she basically has to go through this emotional cycle where she just tries to at first find, the positive side to all this, but at the same time she's very negative about certain things, about her past. But also, I also do like the relationship between her and the main romantic interest character. In a way, he's a romantic interest character. But I really do like their relationship. I like the friendship that most of them all have. I like that, there is more to just the whole thing about what happened between her and her family by the end of the story. And then all of a sudden it just goes on to a different direction. Like, there's this mystery that's going on about like a teacher hurting students and stuff like that. But honestly, the series itself is very, very interesting, very, 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 very cool and stuff like that. There's also these kinds of shorts that was released on the DVD of the series, but I'm not sure if it's like worth seeing. I remember seeing them and not being very invested in them, but honestly, I still recommend the anime. It's really good. I also love the theme song. The OP is actually really, really catchy and really good too. So yeah, highly recommend. It's a pretty good underrated anime. You guys should definitely see it. I already kind of already talked to my thoughts on One Piece. So on the live action One Piece series. So yeah, next one. The first My Hero Academia. What can be said honestly? At least the first arc. I think a lot of people already know what My Hero Academia is, but for those who's never seen the anime, which I kind of highly doubt, this is a very, very popular anime and still going now, but thank gosh that it's going to have an ending very soon. So, yeah, I'll get a quick rundown. Basically, Izuki Midoriyami. I'm sorry if I got that name wrong. I'll just call him Deku. Basically, Deku is basically a teenage boy who, who wants to be hero at UA High School. Who wants to be accepted at UA. But the problem is he was born without powers, or quirks as they call them in this world. So basically, it's a world full of superheroes that basically are given the abilities, like they call them quirks, but in really they're just powers, across the world. And we focus on our character Deku, who wants to be a hero and also wants to be a hero like his idol All Might. But of course, he kind of has a frenemy named Bakugo who kind of keeps putting him down, keeps bullying him, telling him he'll never be a hero if he doesn't have a quirk and everything like that. So of course, he basically wants to be a hero, and so he tries to follow his dream even if he doesn't have any quirks. So then, of course, then a monster comes around in town and tries to destroy everything and stuff. But then before that, he ends up meeting his hero, All Might, very early on, and he kind of discovers a secret of All Might. He discovers that All Might doesn't have too much time of being, the greatest hero of all time, because he somehow has this kind of very terrible, like, scarring, like injury or something like that. He goes into this very, very weak form that Deku, of course, is surprised about. And of course, he asks All Might if he can be a hero without a quirk. And of course, All Might obviously gives the answer of no, you have to have a quirk to be a hero. But then, of course, there's a situation where Bakugo is basically, taken by this slime monster or something like that, and he's almost about to be swallowed whole from the monster. But of course, his friend Deku comes in and tries to save him and stuff, and and of course, he kind of pulls this positive mood of even if he doesn't have a quirk, he wants to be a hero. But then, of course, All Might saves them all. And then of course Deku gives this like great speech of why he wants to be a hero, why he wants to help people and stuff, and it's really impactful and really emotional. And it possibly is one of in my opinion, the first episode of My Hero Academia, or even the very first chapter in a sense of the manga, is possibly one of if not one of the most masterpieces of writing. It just kind of brings in the cliches that you've seen about superheroes before, but somehow it really does an incredible job. Like, it does such a great job of how it starts. It does a very unique take on the origin story of a hero. And honestly, yeah, so of course, after Deku gets his speech done, All Might kind of basically says that I will basically transfer my powers to you because he's going to be retiring soon, but you need to earn them. I do like the fact that he basically has to earn the powers. He has to earn the quirks of one for of all for one, or one for all. One for all. It's the power one for all. One for all. Okay, the power of one for all, and basically he trains Deku because the idea is his Deku kind of needs to keep his muscles. He needs to have like big muscles in order to like keep the powers, restrained and not hurt himself, because that's how the quirk works. And of course, it has the iconic scene where when he finishes, he takes a piece of his hair out and he's just like, eat this. And then I'm just like, okay, that's very funny. That's very funny. It's just weird, but it's also kind of funny. And of course, he meets a bunch of other characters. I think Uruguay, Uraka or something like that. So Uraka, Uraviti, the girl who can basically, zero gravity herself. Bakugo, who has the power of flames. And then, of course, the Sue, I remember Sue, basically the frog type character, and of course Hero, and of course then there's these other characters, a girl who can release acid, but she's also an alien. And this is where the point where I just want to say, like, I remember every single one of the characters I'm talking about, and what they look like, and even their personalities, but I can, for the life of me, can't remember their names, because I think I've said this before in a bunch of my previous anime reviews. I'm very shit at Japanese names. I'm terrible at remembering their names because they're just very difficult to say. It's not, like I said, I'm very sorry. That's just kind of how I've been. I try to remember their names. I mean, oh, it's hard. It's hard to remember their gosh damn names, but I remember who they are, I remember their personalities. So basically, Deku goes into, obviously, tries to train to be a hero, and of course he gets uptight by Lydia. Yeah, I actually remember him, because he's like a guy who basically follows all the rules, but he also has jetpacks in his knees, and stuff. But yeah, basically, he tries to pass the exam, and of course, he does pass, and he enters the UA High School. He trains to be a hero. Now, one thing that, of course, even before when I heard about the series and how popular it was, what really interests me was the factor that it was very similar. Another project that I remember seeing, a long time ago, called Disney's Sky High, which in a way is very similar to this. I'm not sure if, the mangaka has seen that. He said that he got inspiration from Marvel Comics, from DC and stuff, from superheroes in general, but I wonder if he's seen this movie, because there is a lot of things that have a very amount of similarities to Sky High and My Hero Academia. Even to kind of the main character not really having powers to the point of having powers later on. It's very similar. Some of the friends are kind of similar too, so I'm just like, I wonder if he's seen that movie even before he made it. But yeah, I don't have much to say other than the fact that I really do like this series. I mean, I have nothing really much to say. I'm pretty much as much as everyone else. I really like the characters. I like the story. I like where it goes. I think my favorite season out of all of it is season 3. But for right now, I'm kind of not as invested I am into the series as before. I think it's just because I kind of got tired. I just kind of got tired of it or something like that. It kind of went through season rot or something like that. It's going a little longer than it needs to be, and I am at least invested enough to, wait until eventually the series comes back and stuff. But yeah, I'm kind of not that much into it other than that. But yeah. So yeah, that's my general thoughts of My Hero Academia. I think it's really good. You've probably seen it. Everyone says it's really good. I've seen all the movies, so yeah, pretty much nothing much to say. Next one. Lucky Star. Actually, give me a moment. Yeah, Lucky Star. I have the Blu-ray of this. What can I really say about it? It's possibly one of the greatest anime by Kyoto Animation. Yeah, and yeah, that's just basically, it's one of the greatest anime by Kyoto Animation. It's a slice of life anime about the main character, Konata Izumi, who basically is with her friends, Tsukasa, Kagami, and kind of Miyuki. Miyuki's barely in this, for God's sakes. I understand that she's in the cover, but she's kind of barely in the anime and stuff. So yeah, I did an entire script for this for when I would make a separate video for anime, but this is just something that I want to bring up. Why is this series animated? And I don't mean that as an insult to animation. I'm just like, why is this particular series anime? I understand that it's like based on a mangaka and stuff, but I think the thing is, like, I can see this working as a live action series. I can definitely see this working even as a live action movie. Honestly, I would like to see an American adaptation of this series. I think it would work really well, honestly, because if it has, like, the same characters, same jokes and stuff, or maybe, kind of jokes that, a lot of, because the idea of this anime kind of does kind of deal with the fact of, it's basically the anime itself, Lucky Star, is kind of like, it references a lot of other anime, a lot of anime that's either classic anime, modern anime at the time. It's really, really good, though. I have to say right now. I think the writing is also kind of very smart, but at the same time kind of lazy, because literally the first episode and the first 15 or 20 minutes of the anime, it's nothing but the characters talking about food. And I think it gives you the general idea of what you're about to be seeing, honestly. I think Konata Izumi is one of my favorite, characters. She's like considerably one of the most recognizable characters when you think of this anime, and I think Kagame is too. She's a has a very good personality. And the thing is about this series is that you kind of don't know what to think about it sometimes. You kind of like, you really do like the characters and stories, but it's just mostly the characters just messing around, or they talk about very interesting things. They talk about very, very kind of do what is the point of all this conversation? They kind of they talk about like whatever kind of conversation they have, but at the same time, most of the time they do have a lot of anime or even video game references. And I think about one character in particular who owns a comic book store. I'm sorry, I can't remember the name, but there's this one character in a comic book store which I think is supposed to make fun of what most Americans think anime is, because that's kind of how I look at it, or making fun of mostly action anime in general. But like I said, I feel like this series is really funny. There's a lot of memorable moments, and there's a reason why a lot of the clips on YouTube's get so many views and stuff. But yeah, and a lot of people are wondering like, why isn't there a season two? I think the reason for that is because there's actually a few reasons why there isn't a season two of this anime. For one thing, the manga, even though it has good material in the beginning, it kind of starts getting a little less funny as it went on. I try to continue reading the manga myself, but it's just not as impactfully funny as it was before, compared to this, or even the first few chapters and stuff. That's kind of what I've noticed. I started getting a little tired of it. And of course, I think it has to do with the spin off series, kind of like, not being successful. So that's kind of another reason why, obviously, Kyoto Nation never went back to do a second season of this. But honestly, I would like to see them try. Maybe it's also because the manga also doesn't have enough material. I'm not sure if they have enough material or something that they can do to continue it or something like that. But this is like an anime that a lot of people are demanding to have a second season, and I can understand why. But in all honesty, maybe it really doesn't need it or something like that. Maybe if they want to come back for a special or something like that, like have these characters in the modern time, seeing smartphones and just mostly the internet culture and stuff, and everything like that. Maybe that'll happen. I actually do want to see the Lucky Channel characters again too. They were really funny too. Yeah, so honestly, nothing much to say, but this is a very, very, very good anime, and I highly recommend it. It is one of Kyoto Animation's best. Definitely get it on Blu-ray, watch it on Crunchyroll. It's one of the greats. Okay, so now we're going to be getting to the final one. And the final one is... You know, I weirdly have a lot to talk about with that one. I mean, obviously, I just want to kind of get this over with, but for some odd reason, I really want to talk about it in not only detail, but even talk about the episodes themselves. I'm kind of a bit in a standstill right now. You know what, guys? D-Star signing out. Roger D-Star signing out because, you know what? Next video, I'm going to be doing a full-on video on the next anime that I'll be talking about. So yeah, watch out.